So yesterday I finished three projects and I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm so excited to have some FOs to finally show. So let's get into it. I'll see you on the other side. Hello, and welcome to episode 54 of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I'm a knitter and a crocheter, and every couple of weeks I come to this little corner of YouTube to show you what I've been working on and also to share some ideas that I've come across on how we can all take our love of making things and do a little bit of good in the world with it. I hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday if you celebrate. It was hectic, as I'm sure it was for many of you. It was hectic here. It was like 2 full days of cooking, followed by what always feels like a relatively quick meal. It was just 6 of us. It was my husband and both sets of parents, as it has been for the last few years. But it was a nice afternoon. My folks ended up staying over because I just don't want them to drive after dark. So we got to hang out with them and watched a little TV, chit-chatted. I showed off some knitting. I did some knitting, and it was a very nice day. As I think I mentioned last episode, we made Indian food. So for the last several years, we have opted not to do the traditional turkey and dressing and mashed potatoes, and we've kind of taken a regional cuisine from somewhere in the world and just got a bunch of cookbooks from the library and picked recipes that we wanted to try out. So this year it was actually a repeat of Indian because we had done Indian a couple years ago and we both got COVID and had to cancel that. So it turned out really great. It was, and we were very well organized, or the schedule worked out very well, so it wasn't a last minute like scramble to get everything done. I mean, there's always a little bit of that, but we worked starting the day before, sort of almost all day that day, and then had the day of Thanksgiving. But a lot of it was done, and we actually had time to take a little nap before dinner, which was sort of amazing and rare. So that was something to be thankful for. But it was a very nice day. I hope that you all were safe, and if you had to travel, that it all went smoothly for you and you were able to spend some great time with friends and family and food and community. Otherwise, the other big thing that has happened since last we spoke is I went to the Southern California Fiber Fair, which is the second year that that's been going on over in Pomona. One of my little local knitting groups were going to do a carpool. A couple of people had to drop at the last minute, so Shannon and I, hi Shannon if you're watching this, Shannon and I teamed up and we drove out to Pomona where it was and spent Saturday morning and some of the afternoon going through the fair. It was a lot of fun. It was bigger than it had been last year, more vendors, more people. It was very crowded, which was great to see. I'm going to, at the end here, we get into acquisitions, I'll show you my haul, my mini haul. It was pretty restrained, I would say. But it was great to catch up with a bunch of old friends, see what is new out there in the fiber world, or what people are showing off for the season. So that was really fun. And then we came home and we had a kind of a Friendsgiving thing that night, which was also a lot of fun. A bunch of people I didn't know, but it was a really cool group of folks that someone had hosted us for dinner. And then the other thing that we did that weekend was we went to see Urban Bush Women, which is a performance dance troupe. I think they've been around for like 30 or 40 years now. And primarily dance, not really like acting kind of, but at least this performance was more of a narrative dance. It was all sort of based around the Great Migration, and I think the founder of the company, kind of her family history of moving from the Deep South during the sort of Great Migration when many millions of black families moved to the Northeast to escape from segregation and Jim Crow. And it was kind of a story of her mother and father moving to Kansas City and meeting up there, and sort of old photos and things were woven through the piece, which was done with this like jazz quartet with 4 jazz vocalists. Did a lot of, it was called Scat was the name of the show, and there was a lot of scatting in the vocals as well. It was really interesting and well done, so that was a lot of fun. So like I said, it's been a busy couple of weeks, and it's been a busy couple of weeks on the knitting side. I have 3 FOs to talk about, I think 3, and some whips. So it feels like it's back to kind of a normal flow in terms of the podcast, because some of the big projects I've been working on for what felt like months and months and months have finally come to fruition. So I'm excited about that. The other big thing that happened just today, actually, so I'm filming this on December 1st, excuse me, the Knit Stars Season 9 debuted. The rest of the classes that hadn't already come out, so I think 5 had already come out over the past few months, but the final 5, which includes my class, dropped today. So if you are a owner of Knit Stars Season 9, first of all, thank you. And I hope that you get a chance to take a look at not just my class, but all of them. I've been kind of binging what they call the lifestyle videos, which are sort of the little intro video clips where they, film around your house, and you there's a voiceover that Shelly has been asking questions of, and that's what I've been watching. I haven't done a deep dive into any of the classes yet, but I'm hoping over the next couple of months I'll be able to do that. I do not need to watch my class because in the editing process, I've sat through those modules several times, so I don't know that I necessarily need to revisit myself on screen. But I'm really excited for a couple of the classes for sure. And today we did a little kind of celebratory. All of the stars were there, and the behind the scene folks, and we just kind of did a little toast to celebrate the final drop of all the classes, and got a little teeny sneak preview into what's coming for season 10, and I think it's going to be pretty amazing. They're adding 5 additional crochet only courses, so there's gonna be 10 knitting classes and 5 crochet classes, which is kind of amazing. And I think there's right now there is a very super early bird special where you can jump in on the ground floor, and as the kind of behind the scenes stuff happens over the course of the year, you'll get to see that, but you're doing it kind of sight unseen in terms of you don't even know who the stars are going to be. So if you have a chance, if you are an owner, please go watch my class. I would love any feedback that you that you have. It was a lot of fun to do. I think there's some good information in there in terms of craftivism and running events for charities, as well as a really cool project that I've shown here many times. So that was kind of the last big fun thing that's happened over the next couple of weeks. If you are a member of the Knit Stars Knitiverse, is that what it's called? Knitiverse? That sounds right. Yarniverse. Oh, I should know these things. If you're a member of the Yarniverse, each month they're going to be spotlighting one of the season 9 folks, and so January is going to be my month. So I know there's a live that I'm going to be doing with them, and hopefully there'll be some other things that happen during the month that I can be a part of, because I always have fun going on the lives with all the Knit Stars folks, and getting questions and chit-chatting and stuff like that. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the knitting, I thought I'd go over a few craftivism ideas. 'Tis the season for knitting for charity, heading into the winter holidays, so there's some of that. I wanted to first mention something that I talked about last time, that is the Knit Socks for Sam event that is going on. So right now, starting today, they kicked off the knit along. So this is a program. Excuse me. The Instagram handle is Knit Socks for Sam. The hashtag is Socks for Sam. It is inspired by a young man named Sam who has a untreatable terminal disease called vanishing white matter disease, and some of his friends have gotten together to create this knitting event to sort of raise awareness about the disease, and also to raise funds for a foundation that does research into the disease to hopefully at some point be able to find some treatments and cures. Sam, the young man who has this disease, loves mismatched socks, colorful mismatched socks. That's a tongue twister. And so as part of this campaign, they're doing a knit along for socks. So you can hashtag socks for Sam and tag knit socks for Sam for the next 2 months on any of your sock knitting. And they're doing, I think, weekly giveaways. They have some really great prizes that yarn companies and other sponsors have donated. So I think right now they're giving away a set of Gu shorties. So I think every week they're going to have giveaways over the next couple of months as part of the knit along. And then they're asking folks who are able or who want to send completed socks, either singles or a pair, into them. You'll be entered into raffles, and then at the end of the event in the collection, they're going to have a sale of the handmade socks as another fundraising way to raise funds for the foundation. So it's a great cause. I know the folks at Kevin and Ray over at Needles the Ready have been doing a lot of promotion around this, so I think that's fantastic. But if you are a sock knitter and you have a little extra energy to knit up some socks and have those donated, it's a great cause. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a pair of socks here in a bit, but I think I have some sock tubes that were already knit up, and I think I'm just going to add the heels and toes and cuffs to those, and maybe donate a pair of those to the raffle or to the sale at the end of the thing. The other thing I wanted to mention, so in my Knit Stars class, there's a resource pack, and in that there's some reading stuff, but there's also a list of organizations that have kind of been around for a long time in the craftivism space in terms of people that collect various things over the years. So Knit the Rainbow, Noodly Knits, who I showed my hat from last time, who does an annual hat drive. One of the groups that I mentioned in there is Hats for Sailors, and so they collect and distribute hand knit and crochet hats to members of the U.S. Navy. So they've been doing it for a while. I don't know how many years this has been going on, but I feel like it's been more than a decade. And it's run out of somewhere here in California is where the organizer lives, because that's the mailing address for them. If you go to, it's www.hatsforsailors.com. But I just noticed on their Instagram feed this week that they have announced that 2025 is going to be the final year that whoever the organizer of this wants to run this. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention, that if you are a hat knitter and you like charity knitting, and you have some stash that you want to burn through, that's a great organization. Perhaps you know someone in your family who was a sailor for the Navy, or you have some attachment to the U.S. Navy. I think that's a great way to give back to the men and women who serve our country. The other thing that I wanted to kind of throw out there, as I talk about in my Knit Stars class, sort of taking the next steps in craftivism, if that is something that moves you, if you have a personal connection to the U.S. Navy or a sailor or someone, like I said, someone in your family, it sounds like the person who organizes Hats for Sailors is interested in handing off the baton to someone else who would like to run the organization going forward, so that it doesn't just stop, so we continue to be able to get hats to folks who are out at sea for most of their year. So if that strikes a chord with you, I would definitely head to the hatsforsailors.com website or to their Instagram account, which is Hats for Sailors, and just read up on it and see. I think she or he, I don't even know who it is, has an email address there that if you were interested in maybe pursuing taking over the reins of this organization, there's an email that you could reach out to them. I think it'd be a really amazing opportunity for someone or a group, if you have your local knitting group who is looking for some sort of service angle to their activities, I think it would be a really cool thing to take this over and continue it on into the future. So that's hats for soldiers. In terms of knitting the hats for them and sending them, the only thing they ask is they are 100% wool and preferably superwash, so that they will stay warm when and if they get wet, and they're easily cared for on the ships. The last one, and I mentioned this because they had a little table at the Southern California Fiber Fair, but it's also an organization that I mentioned in my course materials, and that is Warm Up America. So historically, or I think the main part of what they do is they collect 7 and 9 inch squares, knit or crochet, as pieces of blankets, and then they piece them together into blankets and distribute them to organizations around the country. So there's two things there. One is if you are a knitter or a crocheter, and I think this is an excellent thing for relatively new knitters and crocheters to work on, because they're relatively small. You can test out different stitch patterns and things like that, but you could knit those squares. There's an address on their website. Everything will be linked down below. Here is a QR code. If you're not watching this on your device, you can scan that and get right to the show notes, which is going to have a link to all of these organizations and patterns and yarn and everything I talk about today. But if you are interested in making squares, you can make 9 or 7 inch squares and ship those off to them. The other thing that they have a need for always are joiners. And so what they do is they pack up the squares into boxes of 500, and then they ship them off to you, and you join them up into the finished blankets, and then either send them back, or if you have someone, I guess, that you know of where you can distribute them. I'm not sure on the detailed logistics on that, but I know you can join them all together. And again, I think that'd be a really awesome project for a knitting club, is just to get one of the boxes of 500. If you have 10 or 12 people working on that, you're going to be able to get those blankets put together in pretty short order. So I think that'd be a really fun kind of group project, as sort of a service project for a knitting club or a local knitting group. The other thing, though, they're doing right now in response to the recent hurricanes and floodings in Western North Carolina specifically, is they are collecting blankets and hats and scarves and mittens and baby items to distribute through different organizations in the Asheville, Western North Carolina area, as temperatures drop there and people are still dealing with sort of the aftermath of that, and not always having full power and all of the things that have come as a result of the flooding that went on there a couple months ago. So head to the Warm Up America website, and there's a page that's like current needs, and they list, in addition to their normal blanket activities, some other sort of immediate needs that they have in terms of other items that are not just necessarily the 7 and 9 inch squares. So that is Warm Up America. So those are the 3 Craftivism ideas I had for today. Again, I always say this, but if you come across something, I can't see everything that is out there on the World Wide Web, or in your local communities. If there's something that you would like to bring to my attention that you think would be something that folks are interested in helping out with, please let me know, and I will do my very best to try to share that as soon as I get it from you. So with that, let's get into the actual making of things. As I mentioned, I had yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I finished 3 projects. I actually have more than 3 FOs though, because one was finished earlier. But I finished 3 projects in one day, and it felt like such a weight had been lifted off of my shoulder. I felt like such a sense of accomplishment. I'm sorry the light looks like it's getting really bright in here. I may have to pull down the shade in a second, but I want to enjoy this sort of winter sun light. But anyway, I felt like I'd accomplished so much by having 3 things completed in a single day, especially after having come off of like 2 days of busy Thanksgiving cooking. I was feeling very efficient and accomplished. Before that, however, I finished the first of the 2 baby blankets that you have seen me talking about for what feels like months. Here is a photo of my goodness, Flying Foxtails blanket from Stephen West. It is a brioche blanket. I knit this up in the white, which is the right side, is Cascade 220, color 01, I think, cream. And then the reverse side is a Magpie Fibers Fiber Society. I'm going to want to say 34, but I will double check that. It'll be down in the show notes below. Both of those are DK weight, so that's their swanky. The Magpie Fiber is their swanky DK base, so that's an MCN base. That blanket was a lot of fun to work on. I would say it went very, very smoothly for the first third. Then I had some documented problems with it on Instagram. I did a couple of little short clips on fixing my problems in brioche. And then, as I think I mentioned before, post-election, it was a bit of a struggle bus for me in terms of just being able to focus on it. And I think I also got a little cocky and had pretty good success with it. I was like, oh, I can do this while I'm watching TV or whatever. And I don't think that was probably true. I, for the most part, needed to be focused on that and that alone, maybe with some music in the background. But it wasn't one where I could really engage with TV at the same time. But I'm so thrilled with the way it turned out. It has been delivered to the baby and the baby's family. They seem to really like it, so that's great. I hope that that the baby gets a lot of use out of it. I feel a little bad because I wanted to work from stash, and so that's why I ended up using the Magpie Fibers, even though I had to get an extra skein from someone because I played Yarn Chicken and Lost. But I wanted to use from stash because I didn't want to go out and buy new yarn. And so it's not machine washable because it has the MCN base is not superwash. It's super cozy and it's very luxurious for a baby, but I did put a little note in that it was like a bit of poor planning on my part. Like, I'm sorry that it's not something you can just throw in the washer, but as most people who have seen it said, you know, this is going to be a blanket that is draped over the crib. Maybe you pull it out for some photos or something like that, but it's probably not going to be the blanket that the baby drags around the house, given one, that it's white, and two, that you can't wash it. So, be that as it may, I hope they love it. So that was FO1, and then well, I guess while we're on the blankets, I've been working on 2 baby blankets, and I didn't quite get them done before the babies came, but they are both now completed. This one's about to go into the mail tomorrow. This is crocheted, and it's going to be hard to see the whole thing, but I'll pop a picture of it here, and then I'll kind of hold it up as well. But this is a crochet blanket from a book that I've shown before called Mix and Match Modern Crochet Blankets. Essentially, it's a stitch dictionary that she has with a bunch of different stitch patterns, motifs, and bobbles, and there's some mosaic, and I think there's like 100 and something different patterns in there, and then you knit them up in strips and join them together. I had finished up the strips almost, I think, the last time we spoke, and I was really nervous about piecing it together. And I don't love seaming in general. It just never seems as easy as they make it look on the YouTube videos. But I had posted about it. The woman who wrote the book, her name's Esme Crick. She had some great tips. Some other people had some great tips about how to clip the things together. She just has you do a whip stitch, which I was a little unsure about how that was going to look, but I got to say, except for a couple of the blocks where it's a little visible, obviously you're joining two different colors, and she suggests using whichever the darker of the colors is to make the join. Except for a couple of the strips, it's nearly invisible, and it seems very sturdy. Once you put the single crochet border around it, it really pulled it all together. I would say the only thing that I'm not thrilled about, and this I think comes down to, I don't know, my tension, but the final panels at the bottom and the top felt a little looser. Not that one as much as this one, which is a double crochet through the back loop only stitch pattern, and it's just a little more open and airy. And I didn't think that the edge of it looked great as a raw edge. Now I will say on her, the version, she has, like I said, there's about 100 motifs in the book. Then she has 5, 6, 7, something like that, samples where she's picked different motifs, put them together in different colors. I based mine off of one of her samples. It was called Forest Canopy. I swapped out one of the motifs, but she ends it with having, I think, 8 tassels on each end. I was going to do it, had some discussions with different people, and decided to opt not to do that, just figuring it's just something for the baby to chew on, and they're just going to get grungy and stuff. But I didn't love the raw edge at the bottom, and so I, at the ends, the short ends. So I went ahead and did, as I had done on the long ends, is what she suggests. I did rows of single crochet, and just the doing crochets on single crochets around that edge versus the short ends, which all ended in single crochet. So she has you do a row of single crochet at the end of each strip, so it's easy to do the border. This is a little fiddlier because there's not a nice clean edge to do it on. Also, the gauge of the row gauge is different than the stitch gauge, and it just, where to put the stitches becomes a little bit of a hunt and peck kind of situation. And so the edge is a little wavy, but this edge in particular, the through the back loop only ones, was especially kind of wavy. And I thought about ripping it out. My husband convinced me not to, that given that this was a baby blanket, it was going to get, heavily used. It was no sense in going crazy to create the perfect edge. I will say I threw it in the washing machine and gentle cycle, and then into the dryer, and everything kind of tightened up, and it looks a little neater. So this is all 100% acrylic. This is the Color Crafter line from Shapies, or Sheepies, as it looks like for English readers. And it was a perfectly fine yarn to work with. I mean, it's a little squeaky, like 100% acrylic can be, but for the most part, I thought it was a pretty easy to work with. The yarn, it comes in a ton of colors, which is nice. And I'm happy with the way that this turned out. I wasn't always 100% sure that the colors I had picked were gonna play together nicely at the end, and I did end up swapping versus her sample of this grouping. I did swap some out so that it kind of flowed a little bit better to my eye, but I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I do think that having that border around the edge, which is the same color as both of the end pieces, really ties it all together. So it's a big blanket. I'm hoping that the kid gets a lifetime of use out of it. I know I have a blanket or a granny square Afghan that my grandmother made me when I was probably in 2nd grade, and I still have it and use it to this day. So I'm hoping that this kid is able to enjoy this for a long time. I think for a baby, some of these textures in here, like the baubles and the little chains and things, are going to be really fun for them to play with. So I'm going to get this in the mail tomorrow, and the family doesn't know it's coming, or they know. I think they know something's coming, but I don't think they have any idea what it is. So I'm excited for them to get that, and I can't wait to hopefully get some pictures with the little guy on the blanket. So that was the first thing I finished yesterday, and then I had been working on my Clapo tee for Knitty Magazine. Was running a knit along for the Clapo tee, which was celebrating its 20th anniversary. I think I had never made one. I'd always wanted to, and I had no business starting another project, but I wanted to play along, so I did. And I had this yarn specifically saved up for this Clapo tee, and so here it is. So this is the very large shawl, scarf, throw kind of thing. It definitely works well, like over the shoulders, like you would traditionally think of a shawl, because it just accordions out with the drop stitches, and so I think it's gonna be it's heavy, but because the drop stitches give you some airflow, I don't think it's gonna be particularly warm. But I just love how it, like, these ripples that it creates once you get all the drop stitches done. And that is the most fun part. The pattern's pretty straightforward. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, but once you get into it, it's really pretty straightforward. But each time you hit one of those, I get to unravel the strips, and it doesn't destroy the project. It's really a lot of fun. So Aran White yarn, I did it just as per the pattern. This is Lola Bean Yarn Co. The Wakabi colorway. Ooh, here's a drop stitch that didn't drop all the way down, so we have something fun to do later. It's the Wakabi colorway, which was part of her Black Panther. Almost said Lion King. Black Panther collection from a few years ago. I have probably about a half a skein of it left. I haven't weighed it yet. Not sure if it's going to be enough to make a hat of, but it may just become part of a scrappy hat if I can find some other sort of coordinating Aran White yarns. But I like it. It's a different shape than most of the stuff that I have, and I think it'll be a nice thing just to curl up on the couch with, and wear out if it gets down in the 50s or something here. So this was FO number 2. I've got to get I think I have a couple days to get my photo in to Knitty. They were doing a bunch of giveaways. I think they had like 50 or 60 yarn dyers who had donated yarn. So I'm going to submit mine and see if maybe maybe pick up a prize along the way. The other FO that I finished, I don't know what was going on back in February and March, but a lot of folks were getting busy because I have a lot of babies that have come into the world in the last month or so. So if a knitting friend of mine, she and her husband just had a little baby girl, and a bunch of folks had gotten together and worked on a group project, and I had some of the yarn that was being used in that project, and so I thought, oh well, I'll just knit a little hat for the baby, and I'm gonna forget what it is. It'll be down below. It's a Knit Picks. I just can't remember the name of the smush, or I feel like it has something to do with like softness. It's a cotton acrylic blend. I think it's 50-50. So I just made a little barley hat. This is Tin Can Knits. I've made this hat before. It's a really fun, fast knit. This is worsted weight yarn in this kind of purpley color. But hold on, I'm gonna find the name of this. Okay, it is not smushy. It's called Comfy. Is the name of the yarn. So worsted weight from Knit Picks, and it is 109 yards per 50 grams, and it is 75% cotton, 25% acrylic. So I thought that was cute, but I still had some yarn. I only had one ball of it, but I still had some left over, and I think that's it in terms of FOs. So what I decided to do as we move into whips is I found a pattern. It is called Twisted Headband by Nuts for Knits. So Nuts, Knuts, for knits. And they have a pattern that is the same twisted headband, which is pretty simple thing, but they do it in a bunch of different different stitch patterns and they have a huge range of sizes from newborns up to adults. So I'm doing it in this little, I think they call it a honeycomb stitch. It's this little slip stitch pattern. and I think I'm getting close to finishing up. I haven't read ahead to figure out how you do it, but there's some origami technique, and then you seam it together. So you build the twist into it that way. So I figured I'll just include that. I'm going to be down to just the bits and bobs of the yarn, but I'll include that in with a little package for the new baby. So they'll have a hat and a little headband to wear as well. So I just started this last night, and we were watching a really cute, fun, heartwarming show on Netflix with Ted Danson called Man on the Inside. It's about a guy who kind of takes a private detective job inside of a senior living facility to try to solve a crime, and it's funny and it's very heartwarming. We watched a little bit of it with my parents who live in a senior living community, so it was hitting very close to home to them in terms of sort of the antics that go on in those places. Anyway, I started it last night and I'm almost done with it, so hopefully that will also be put in the mail maybe tomorrow if I get cracking on it tonight. I think we're going to watch a movie. So anyway, so that was the first of that's the only new whip I have, but I thought we can now, since we have some FOs to talk about, we can get back into some of the other whips that have been just sort of sitting on the back burner. I mentioned maybe I didn't mention it, but we are in the middle or in the final month of a knit-along that kicked off when Stephen West did his mystery knit-along. So I think that's early October. So we're now in the final month. It's going to run till the end of the year of my Go West knit-along. And as part of that, I am working on my Go West project. I don't know if I showed this last time, but this is my botanic shawl. It is a two-color shawl, very nice TV knitting, easy to memorize pattern, just like little slip stitch design. And then the real work is being done by the color changing yarn that you use as the background color. I've seen folks do it with just a variegated. I really love how this is turning out with this color changing yarn, which is mainly blues and grays. And then you have this little bit of cream and then this kind of lavender purple. But that only comes up very infrequently, so it's mainly blues and grays, which blend very well with the Urban Girl yarn in the Allentown colorway that I'm using for the main color. So it is very matchy with the color changing yarn, which I should also show is Chroma Fingering from Knit Picks. The colorway in my very messy ball is Sandpiper. So it calls for 2 full skeins of each, but I'll have to look at how many repeats I've already done. I mean, obviously it's getting longer, it's getting wider and wider as you go, so it's going to use up the yarn at a faster rate. But I feel like I'm getting past the halfway point in terms of the number of repeats. So my hope is that I will be able to finish this before the end of my knit along. It's not great when you don't even complete your own knit alongs, but hey, that's the way things go these days. So I'm hoping I'm going to be able to finish that in this next project before the end of the year. I'm not starting any new projects, with small exception, before I get the 3 whips, or at least 2 of the whips that I've already started, get those finished up. So the second one, and the one that's sort of the biggest priority right now, is a pair of socks that I was commissioned by my sister-in-law to make. These are being done in the Always Be Kind Otter Pop Disco colorway from my Stitch Out Loud yarn collection, which we sold last year as a fundraiser for AIDS Life Cycle. This is inspired by one of the pit stops on AIDS Life Cycle, which is the Otter Pop Disco, and where the bear community gives out Otter Pops and has a disco ball, and everyone dances and has a good time on. I think it's on the longest day, and it's usually at a really hot point of the day when you get to that spot. So she had bought the yarn and asked if I would make the socks, and I said absolutely, would be happy to do that. So we took some measurements when she was here earlier this year, and I'm just using the basic sock pattern from Kate Atherley's Custom Socks That Fit Your Feet, I think is the name of the book. So we took her measurements and are using those to make a basic top down, 2 at a time, magic loop, heel flap, and gusset. I'm about halfway through the heel flap right now, and like I said, I hope that I'm able to finish these and the Botanic shawl in the next few weeks. I'd love to be able to get these to her, if not for the holidays proper, very soon thereafter, since she lives in a very cold part of America and would probably enjoy some wool socks right about now. So those are my Otter Pop Disco basic vanilla socks that I'm working on. And then the last whip that I have going right now is one I started a while back. It has not seen any activity for probably the better part of a month and a half. And this is my Crochet Blanket. I will just show you where I am on it to refresh your memory. This is a pattern by Carol Feller, a fellow Knit Star Season 9 teacher. And this I'm really excited to get back to because I was having so much fun with this project. It has so many different charts that there's always something new, even though it's the same charts, over and over again. But there's every 10 stitches or so you have something new to work on. So here we are. I think I have to go back and look, but I think I remember that I was about a third of the way through. It's not a huge blanket. It's like a lap-sized blanket. And maybe it's 50 inches, if I'm recalling correctly. But just, I love these cables, and I love how they're turning out in this yarn, which is a Plymouth yarn, and I'm going to forget the name, but it's an alpaca wool blend. But I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. And like I said, I'm very excited to be able to pick this back up again. And start working on it. I'll have to take it slow because it's been so long since I worked on it. In terms of remembering exactly how the cables work, I've been doing it without a cable needle, and I'd like to be able to keep doing it without a cable needle. So I'm expecting the first. I know I'm on a wrong side row now, so that's all purling across the back and just keeping things in pattern. But I'm sure that first couple of pattern rows are going to be a little slow going, so probably not going to be something that I pick up initially while I'm watching something serious on television. I did find that I am able to generally work on this project while watching things on television that don't require subtitle reading. So I've been, I think I mentioned before that I started up again taking Italian lessons, and one of the things that I've been doing increasingly is trying to watch shows in Italian, and I've been watching, there's an Italian show called, the English translation is Deceitful Love on Netflix. It is like a soap opera. It is ridiculous. It's so over the top. But I've been able to, kind of watch it. First, I'll watch it without the subtitles, and then I will watch it with subtitles in Italian, so that see how much more I can pick up by being able to read the Italian. But that's not something I'm going to be able to do while I'm knitting on a cable with 8 different cable charts on it. But it has been fun to start to watch some TV shows, and I actually found a couple of knitting podcasts in Italian. That's a whole vocabulary that I do not know, like the words for different things and knitting words in Italian. So that's been kind of fun as well. And my Italian teacher is very interested because it's not a world she knows anything about. She's also very fascinated the fact that I do this at all, but she's really encouraging me to watch those and then to put together like a vocabulary list of the different terms in Italian. So if you happen to watch this and you happen to speak Italian, and you have any Italian knitting podcasts that you like, or any Italian TV shows that you like, drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear them. It's interesting what is available on Netflix in Italian and what is not. I have been reading. Sorry, we're getting off track here, but I've been reading the graphic novels for Heartstopper, which is a Netflix TV series. Very, very cute, sweet story about two boys in a boys' school in England and all their friends, and LGBT themed. Anyway, but it was originally graphic novels, and we bought the first one in Italy last time we were there, so that's 2 years ago. And I've subsequently found like each of the next volumes in Italian, and my Italian teacher had never heard of it, and so now she's watching it in Italian on Netflix. And so I'm now going back and trying to rewatch it as well, so we can talk about the episodes. The bulk of what we're doing in our lessons is trying to get me to talk, because I'm pretty good with the grammar and I'm pretty good on reading. My vocabulary is not huge, but I can look up words I need to look up. But it's really more getting me over the sort of fear hurdle of speaking Italian. So we talk about the different episodes. Anyway, that was a long story about not being able to knit on the Curdock blanket while watching TV that involves subtitles or a language that I'm not 100% familiar with. But I think that is it in terms of the FOs. As I mentioned, I'm not planning on starting anything new until I can finish both the socks and the botanic shawl. One of the things, and I was going to leave this to the end, but one of the things that I'm starting to do right now is put together a 2025 kind of knitting plan. These things never come to fruition exactly the way you plan them, because things come up during the year. But I'm trying to put together a list of like what my goals and priorities are for next year, and so I'm kind of holding off on starting anything new until I finish those two projects and I kind of come up with a plan for the year ahead. I said, with some limited exceptions, one of the things that I am trying to start over the next couple weeks and see if I can carry it on into the New Year's is the days that I don't go to the gym, which is for me is Orange Theory, is to walk. I think that getting up and walking is probably going to be helpful for I have some back pain issues, some of which I'm sure come from not sitting properly when I knit, but I just feel like getting up and walking. And so my goal is to pop in an audiobook, go for a 2.5 mile, 3 mile walk, and take some knitting along with me on one of my little knitting caddies. I don't know what you call those, the little ones that are on the spindle. I'm going to show you one here in a minute. And so I think that for that, I'm not going to carry a shawl. I'm not going to carry socks. But to always like have a hat project that is just a single skein, single color that I can just walk and knit mindlessly on. And whether that's a charity hat or a hat for me or a hat as a gift, just to always have one of those. So I will probably start a hat before those other two projects are done. I said I was going to show you a knitting caddy minder thing, and that kind of moves us directly into acquisitions. After we do acquisitions, I keep forgetting to do this, I have giveaways for the Go West Knit Along, and so I will do that right after we do acquisitions. Don't let me forget. Anyway, went to Southern California Fiber Fest, which is run by Nancy Bates, who you may know of from the Knitting the National Parks book and the Knitting California book. She and her daughter, I think her daughter's yarn company is called Alley B something. They've put together this event kind of filling the void that Stitches left when they went out of business. And so far, so good. They've done a great job. Very well attended this year. It's over Saturday and Sunday at the county fairgrounds. It's a big, marketplace. They also have some classes, some demos. They actually, much like a county fair, you can submit your knitted items, and they have a judging panel that judges in different categories, and then they display all those, which is really cool to see. Local spinning and knitting guilds do yarn winding. There's a bunch of seating for you just to sit around and knit, and there's a ton of people just sitting around and knitting this year, which is really cool. As I mentioned, Warm Up America had a table there where you could, I think they would actually give you yarn if you wanted to make a square for one of their blankets. It's a great event, and I'm really happy that we have one locally here, given how large the LA metro area is. It was kind of a shame that we didn't have a fiber fair. So it was great to go and see a bunch of friends and meet some new folks as well, some first-time vendors that I had never met in person before, so that was really cool. I was restrained, as I said. One of my intentions for this next year is to dramatically reduce the amount of yarn in this house. Some of that will be from knitting. Some of that is just going to be me getting rid of a bunch of yarn through Destash for good. But anyway, so I only bought 2 skeins of yarn, which I feel pretty good about. I did buy some other things, though, some of which, were just things that I thought were fun and I wanted to have. I think not many of these are going to go into the prize pile. I thought that was what I was going to do. I would buy yarn and put it in the prize pile, but I'm also trying to downsize that as well. So let's go through what I got, and we can talk about some of the vendors that were there. I got to see my friend Kelly from the Royal Bee Yarn Co. up in Pacifica, and she had a couple really fun things. First of all, her yarn, she has such an amazing color sense, and the colors that she had there in the shop were fantastic. So she does 100% non-superwash, and this was her show colorway. So it was called Falling Leaves, SoCal Fiber Fair Falling Leaves 2024. This is on a 100%. No, this one has 60% merino, 20% alpaca, and 20% recycled nylon. I got the fingering weight for this. Obviously very autumnal and lovely. And she's just a joy. She did... I don't have it here. I was wearing it earlier today. I was over on the couch. She did the Gary's guacamole yarn that we used for one of my End-Aids knit-alongs last year on the Bethel shawl. And every time I wear that shawl, I get compliments on it, and people want to know where the yarn came from. And I'm like, well, it's not available anymore. It was a one-time deal. But it was great to see her, and her mom was there, and they're just lovely, lovely folks. The other person that I saw many other people, but the next one in my pile is Tracy from, let me see if I can get this up there, Hap Bee Creative Studios. And so I met her at Flock. She wasn't vending. She was just walking the floor and came up to me and said hello. And we got to chatting, and she said, oh, I'm going to be down at the SoCal Fiber Fair vending. I think it's her first full year as as a vendor. She does stitch markers and all sorts of little notions. A lot of it in acrylic. And well, these I'll show you right away. So she did this as a breast cancer fundraiser, and it is a stitch marker set of boobs. There they are, hopefully, which I thought was hysterical and really a great way to do something that you're passionate about and have some fun with it at the same time. But the thing that she did in her booth, which was so much fun, and it reminds me of the doodle bars that Jamie Lomax at Pacific Knit Co. does with Fangirl Fibers and Yarnaceous, and who else is in that? And then I guess it's Pacific, that have been doing those together at the bigger shows. So they were at Woolen Folk last year, and they were at Flock this year as well. And then each of those, Maggie from Yarnaceous was at SoCal, and she had a little mini kind of doodle bar setup. But that idea of that, the mix and match, kind of choose your own adventure product. So Tracy does for the yarn binder. I don't know what I need to come up with a better name for these, but these caddies that you can strap on your wrist, and they spin, and you can put a ball of yarn on them and then work from the outside of the yarn and walk and knit at the same time. So what she did was, so she had the little plates, and she had these like in like little flip files, like they were CDs, like you were back at, Sam Goody Music and flipping through the CD racks. So she had a bunch of different designs. Some are limited edition. And then you got to choose, you choose your plate, and then she had a bunch of different spindles and, glitter and solid and prints. And then you got to pick your strap. So she had, this one's like a grain leather. She had patent leather. She had some nylon strapping ones. And so you could just mix and match and create your own personal little yarn caddy. And she said that whenever she does a trunk show or a show like this, she has a couple of them that are like limited edition. And once she sold out of them, she never makes them again. And this was, I didn't know it before I picked it, but this was one of them. She's like, you have one of only 8 of those that are going to be out in the world, which I thought was really cool. But she had some holiday ones that I saw that she did for a trunk show. I just had a really fun idea. I think that, after you've gone to a bunch of these fiber fairs, it's always great to see everyone. It's always great to see all the yarn. Despite me trying to prove otherwise, there is kind of a limit on how much yarn you can you can have physically in your space. It varies for everyone, I'm sure, but at some point I just feel like, unless I'm looking for a specific project, or there's just something that just grabs my eye, like the yarn buying thing has not as much of a thrill anymore as it used to be. But it is really cool when you come across these sort of fresh ideas on ways to sell these products. So I thought that was just a really fun idea. She had a bunch of others. She had some really cute little notions tins where she, I don't know if it's a Glowforge or what, but they're engraved with like a little saying or phrase. And she also, those are all one and done, so they're all completely unique. She says once she's chosen a quote or a phrase and she uses it on one of them, she burns the master or whatever pattern, and she never makes it again. So I think I thought it was a really interesting spin on a typical vendor thing. So it was really great to see her and to see what she's up to. I also ran into, and I'd seen her at Flock as well, and I'd fallen in love with this print of hers. This is Dawn Catherine. I think it's just Dawn Catherine Studios, but she does this great print of California made out of yarn with poppies, and then she does it in color on a sticker. And so I'd seen it and sort of beat myself up that I hadn't gotten it when I saw her at Flock, and so I was able to pick that up as well. So a lot of and I think she was, I don't think she vended there last year. So there were a couple of folks that this was their, as I said, the first year vending. Hat B, Dawn Catherine, and then I also picked up this. So this is a beautiful sister bag. They weren't there, but this was commissioned, or a special edition for Maggie at Yarnaceous Studios. If you can see, they are sort of dinosaurs in the patterns, and she had a bunch of different ones. And she said that every time she finds some dino fabric, she's able to like send it to the beautiful sister gals, and they will make up some bags for her. So I thought olive green, right up my alley. I thought that was a really fun kind of spin on a dinosaur theme. So I picked that up. The other thing I picked up from Maggie, like I said, she had a bunch of the doodle stuff. She had kits and a bunch of the different decks, and there was a deck there that I had not seen before, and so I grabbed that. So this is the baking doodle deck. And since my husband is a baker, I thought, well, maybe someday down the road, I could make him a little either doodle hat or doodle cowl with some of the baking motifs. And then I think if you spend a certain amount, and Maggie lets you pick a pair of stitch stoppers, so I picked these, which I just thought was very funny. And then the last thing I got was a skein of yarn that is going to be a hat, and maybe this is the one I'll wind up for my first walking hat. And this yarn, I know the concept has been around for a while, because I know that La Bien-Aimée put out her confetti yarn a couple years ago, but this neon tweed, so tweed with these neon-y neps in it, was all over the place. Almost every dyer has taken this base, and they're all doing completely different things with it. So this is Sarah from Sea Change Fiber, and she does it on, this is a Rambouillet, 89% Rambouillet, 11% acrylic neps. So she did it with like neutrals. So there was like this gray, there was like a darker gray, a really cool black. But then I saw Christina from Teal Torch Knits had a similar, so they were neon tweedy bits, but also then like neon, kind of her, if you know her sort of vibe, it's like a lot of these sort of sherbety color neon, kind of faded neons. And so she had a bunch of those with the neon pops in there as well on a bunch of different bases. I think Seismic has it as well. So it's kind of like for me, it felt like it was sort of the yarn of the moment with these sort of like brightly colored tweedy bits on various bases in the yarn. So this is going to be a hat for me. And so maybe it'll be the next one, the one that I put on my little caddy and go walking and see how that goes. My husband was like, can't you just walk? He's like, or just walk and listen to a podcast? Why do you have to do one more thing? Like, why do you have to be like truly multitasking as many possible things as you can do? So maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. We'll see. But I'm going to give it the old college try and see if I can listen to an audiobook and knit and walk and accomplish three things at the same time. So that was it. Those were, there's a couple of things that I can't show because they were gifts, but that was basically my all the damage I did at SoCal Fiber Fair. So I feel pretty good about keeping it relatively under control. And it was a great event. I'm really happy that it was as well attended as it was. Hopefully it was a huge success for everyone who vended and for the organizers, so that we can keep growing this. There's still plenty of room in that space to grow. It's a little out of the way for me, and I know LA County is a huge county, so it is probably pretty central for, if you look at the county as a whole. But for the folks in LA proper, and even like the southern and western suburbs, it's a bit of a hike. But it's a pretty good setup. And there's some additional room for them to expand. But one of the things I love about it is that they have plenty of tables for folks just to sit around and chit chat and knit in between classes and things like that. So it's a really great event. I think that is just about it in terms of giveaways. See, thank you for not letting me forget. I have been remiss the last couple weeks. I was trying to do this every 2 weeks, so I'm going to do 3 giveaways this time. This is for the Go West KAL. You can still jump in if you have, even if you start tomorrow on any Stephen West pattern. There is a group in Ravelry. In my section of Ravelry, I've put up a thread to share your pictures and just post about what you're working on. Post any picture there or on Instagram using the hashtag GoWestKal. Again, you could start tomorrow. Any Stephen West pattern is eligible. We're going to keep giving away things through the month of December and wrap up. Hopefully, I'll finish mine at the end of the month. So I have 3 prizes to give away. These are going to be skeins of yarn. I'm just going to pull them out of the prize pack. If you see your name up here. Reach out to me on Instagram at Gary Knits Gary Rides, or at Gary Knits Gary Rides, all one word, no underlines, at gmail.com, and I will get you your skein of yarn. I think I have. I don't think I have everyone's shipping address. So the first winner for this round is Jessica NW. That is your Ravelry name. Here it is. And she's working on the Vertices Unite shawl, which is great looking and is definitely on my list. I keep saying I want to do it, and then I started on the Botanic instead. They're both in the queue. I have kit already kitted up for the Vertices. So maybe that'll be a 2025 shawl. I don't know. I really want to get one done because every time I've seen them, they just look fantastic. It looks like a lot of fun and relatively simple to work on. The other two winners are both working on versions of Stephen West's Dustland pattern, which is his single color texture pattern. So Al is Sun, so ALL-IS-SO-ON, who is Allie_Joe on Instagram, working on the Dustland cowl. You have a skein of yarn coming to you, and Waldinky Carol, who is working on the Dustland shawl. She may have already finished it at this point, but she was working on a beautiful, I think she's working on the Pierre shawl. I think I wrote down Dustland, but now that I think about it, I think that's the Pierre shawl, which is also highly textured. Sorry, Carol, I forgot. I think it's the Pierre, but correct me if I'm wrong. You've won a skein of yarn, so I will be getting you your skein of yarn as well. So thank you all for participating again. Keep posting those pictures. I'm going to try for this month every week to come out with a winner, and so those will be. I'll pop the names up here on Instagram as well. But going forward, I'm going to put those up on Instagram. I'm about to get into the complete sun glare here, so I'm glad things are wrapping up. Just a little bit on what's coming up this week. We have a LA Phil concert, Brahms, I think. And then we have Once Upon a Mattress coming up with Sutton Foster. The Broadway production that closed down last month is moved to LA for a few weeks. So I think it includes Sutton Foster and Michael Urie and Anna Gasteyer, I think, as the Evil Queen. So that'll be a ton of fun. So we get to see that. My dad is singing in a choral concert at his retirement community. And so we're going to go over and have a little holiday spirit with them and have dinner with them. And then, as I mentioned, I don't know if it'd be the next episode or, yeah, maybe so. Maybe for the next episode, I'll work on 2025 sort of intentions and planning. I'm having a whole moment right now with my relationship with social media. And so that may change a bit in the year ahead. I'm trying to just kind of figure out what I want to do there. This will continue, but just how much I want to be online, I think, is a big question heading into 2025. So we'll say that, put a pin in it. We'll save it for next time. But thank you so much for taking some time out of your week to spend it with me. Again, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with lots of good food and friends and community. And I hope that the next few weeks, as we get into the thick of the winter holiday season, that you're able to find a little time for yourself and do some making, whether it's for a gift or whether it's just for your own calming mental health. I hope you find some time to do that for yourself. Have a great couple weeks. I will see you soon. Thanks so much.